Welcome to the Mind Body Journey for Wellness and Wellbeing. This masterclass series is essentially a where we sort of explore the intersection between mind body medicine, flow science, and personalizing wellness. And these are the these three areas in particular normally don't necessarily go together, or they haven't historically. But in my research, when I was conducting my doctorate research and studying how people create lives of well-being, sort of what is the grounded experience that people conduct or go through on their own, what is it that happens, and in that journey or in that research is where I discovered that there is a direct connection between people achieving flow states and intentionally using that as part of their lifestyle in creating lives of wellness or lives of well-being. And I do use those words are not intended, wellness and well-being are not intended to be used interchangeably. But what I found in my study was that people who were intentionally, people defined wellness in sort of a variety of ways, not just that they didn't have illness, but that they felt a certain way, that they felt clear, that they felt aligned, that they felt connected. And very often their journeys of their desire to pursue a lifestyle of wellness essentially evolved into a greater picture of overall well-being, of well-being as sort of the quality, the overall experience that they were seeking, and wellness was almost sort of like the roadway into that experience of well-being. The flow science piece came in very organically. People didn't necessarily respond. They didn't necessarily say flow state, although some people did say flow. But it was in conceptualizing the data and sort of looking at what people, the different ways people had described this kind of experience. Again, feeling aligned, feeling connected, feeling sort of all at once sort of presence. These sorts of things were synonymous with the term flow, and so that became one of the key concepts in people's journey. Now, today we're not intending to focus on flow state per se. Instead, today we'll be focusing on meditation. And meditation it's really central to the work of mind-body medicine. And really, it can be a central aspect of, self-care is a basic principle. It's a basic practice for healthy living. And meditation practices very often become an anchor point for people in trying to find a way to create wellness in their lives. So today we'll talk about what is meditation. We'll talk about the different kinds of meditation. We won't cover all of them. There's over, I think, 80,000 different types of meditation. We're going to talk about three major types. We'll talk about the benefits of meditation, both in terms of the short term and the long term. And we'll also talk about how to get started with meditation and how to choose what kind to do, either now or in the future for yourself. I typically will use two types of meditation in my daily life, and we'll get into that. We will hopefully share a little bit about what might happen in meditation, including negative experiences, and oftentimes choosing a meditation style that works for you can help mediate negative experiences. And And yeah, so in getting started today, I'd like to know if there's any questions before we begin. Yeah, Nyla, go ahead.
I didn't quite catch the difference you've said about the wellness and well-being. Could you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so again, going back to this idea, so this was a grounded theory study, which means that it it is about collecting data from the participants in the study and utilizing their definitions um, for rather than using the definition that's necessarily in the literature, in the research literature, we use the definitions of the participants. So in the study, participants defined wellness more as a pathway to an experience of well-being, whereas wellness was seen as um, uh, sort of different behaviors, different activities, sort of a more of a temporary state of being. Well-being was perceived as a the purpose of the wellness activities, the wellness. Um,
Got it.
yeah. Okay. All right. So, in moving forward, self awareness and self care are at the heart of embodied living. They're necessary ingredients in helping us to stay well and helping us to deal with any chronic problems that we might have, particularly when it comes to health and well being. Um, as I mentioned a moment ago, meditation is considered a major, it's a central behavior in mind body medicine. Um, the um, the words meditation and medicine, they come from the same Sanskrit root word, and that root word involves, or it means to take measure of or to care for. Meditation creates a relaxed state, moment to moment awareness, and this is critical for self reduction. Or for stress reduction and for self awareness. There is a self awareness, and self awareness develops through meditation, and it can help us develop our ability to evaluate ourselves in a non judgmental way. It's an important first step in learning how to manage the conditions or the circumstances in our life that create stress. And meditation is essentially at the heart of healing. It's about being able to be here in the present moment, right now. One of my favorite, one of the most impactful aspects of meditation for me has been in strengthening my observation skills without attachment or without judgment. And that's really, that's really where sort of what I think of the juice of meditation is. It's being able to observe and receive and witness without interpretation, without giving. Now we as human, we are meaning making machines. We make meaning out of everything, and sometimes that works really well for us, and sometimes it doesn't. Um, and developing the skill of being able to observe or to witness in a way that is not attached to a particular view is an incredible life skill in our relationships for navigating the modern world that we're in. It's really a good way to be able to receive information um, and to take notice of it. And then there is a time when we want to make judgment. There is a time when we need to, decide the root word of decide is side, right? So like, what are other words that go along with that? We have decide, we have insecticide, homicide, suicide, herbicide. So side, the root word of side is basically to kill off, and a lot of times we have a tendency to decide on something too quickly before we've really spent enough time in observation to make a very mindful decision as we decide to move forward. There's definitely a time for quick, spontaneous, or near spontaneous decision, but I would argue that is really for when we're in certain states of being, or when there's certain experiences that we're encountering. Welcome, Kimmy and Claudia. I see you jumped in. Our main topic today is meditation, the different types of meditation. So every spiritual and religious tradition in the world, every single one, has a meditative practice. You don't have to be religious to do meditation. Even if we belong to a religion or a specific spiritual tradition, we can still use practices from other traditions. And you're always, as we begin to sort of explore all of this, and you think about if you have a religious or a spiritual tradition that you already follow, you're invited to just use what's comfortable for you. Welcome, Drea. So there's 3 major types of meditation, and you're probably familiar with all of them, actually. The first is concentrative, and concentrative is what we've done before in this room, and if you visited some of my other rooms, you very likely have participated in the soft belly exercise with me. Soft belly is an example of a concentrative meditation. So when we're using concentrative, that involves focused awareness on a particular object, an image, or a sound. So we're focusing on one thing. It could also, sometimes people will use a concentrative method might be they are concentrating on a flame of light. Or you might hear, you might be familiar with repeating mantras over and over. That's concentrative. And concentrative is really, really good for developing your concentration skills. I'm sure you've all heard right now, there's a lot of people that are saying, particularly after what we went through the last few years, that there's been a massive drop in people's ability to concentrate long term. I think it was starting before all of that, but a concentrative meditation practice can really help with bringing, with helping to develop your concentration skills. Just staying totally focused on one thing for a short amount of time, and gradually increasing that amount of time will help increase your concentration abilities. So the next type of meditation is mindfulness. And mindfulness, it has gotten really popular, particularly in psychotherapy practices and in the business world. Mindfulness is really well suited for stress reduction. Mindfulness is really, when I talk about, when I mentioned a few minutes ago about non-judgmental awareness, mindfulness really is good at teaching people about how to observe without judgment, and that's what it's really about. It's about noticing, it's about noticing thoughts, noticing sensations, noticing sound, without judging it as good or bad, desired or not. um, and just really sort of, again, just noticing it for what it is. And typically with mindfulness practice, we might start learning how to mindfully meditate with our eyes closed. But mindfulness in particular is a practice about presence. And so as you get going in mindfulness, we are asked to open our eyes. And when I was first being taught mindfulness, I was taught to keep my eyes open slightly and stare at one point on the floor. And we would sit for, I think, 20 or 30 minutes at a time. And it was mind-boggling and very challenging. But we had teachers that continuously led us back to it. And afterwards, there was really this sense of relaxed awareness and feeling much more present. And the thing about mindfulness practices, the thing about all meditation practices is they are challenging in the moment when we're doing them. But it's afterwards, after we've completed them, is when we really begin to experience the benefit. It's like working out. Like when we're at the gym and we're working out, it doesn't feel so great. At least not until we're really starting to get into really good shape again. But it's usually after working out is when we feel the benefits of it. And meditation is a lot like that as well. During it, it's uncomfortable. We come up against all of our edginess and our all the things we don't want to do, all of our areas where we might be undisciplined, and that's all really uncomfortable. So the final type of meditation that you all have heard me talk about probably, I think, every single week here is expressive meditation. I speak a lot about dance as a really just as a practice, as a way of really connecting with ourselves and as an embodiment practice. But embodiment or expressive meditation is actually considered one of the oldest forms of meditation that we know of on the planet. So far, it's been tracked back about 64,000 years. And the original people, who are known as the Bushman tribe in Africa, are said to be sort of the holders of this medicine. They call it shaking medicine. And there is a particular sort of lineage with shaking medicine. But shaking medicine essentially falls within the expressive meditation category. This practice, expressive meditation, this can include, it includes all active techniques. So chanting, dancing, shaking, rapid breath work, whirling, the whirling dervishes of the Sufi tradition. That is considered expressive meditation. So a movement meditation, a lot of times today in the contemporary world, it's called movement meditation. But those all qualify as in the expressive form. So just going back real quick before we move on, I mentioned at the beginning that soft belly, something that we've done here and in other groups, it's a concentrative technique. This is particularly good for relaxation. Dr. Herbert Benson wrote a book a long time ago, I think it came out in the 80s, called The Relaxation Response. And in there, he spoke about meditation as a way to reduce stress, invoke calmness, all of which are necessary for healing to occur. If we're in a stressed state or we're in an anxious state, there isn't healing happening. So to get to that place of relaxation is essential for healing, right? You think about if somebody's really sick or somebody's not doing well, what they often very much need is rest, hydration, and rest. Lots of rest. And it sort of is that same idea. Like if we're trying to um, heal emotionally or psychologically, uh, or even physically, like we need our systems, our nervous systems need to be able to be in a restful state. And coming back to mindfulness, again, mindfulness is really the practice of coming into being, moment to moment awareness and being. Anybody here have experience with meditation, with any of the types of meditation that we've talked about today? Yeah, Claudia, good. Okay, yeah, we got a few people. All right, and would anybody like to share, where you are in terms of your meditation practice right now? Do you actively have a practice, or have you had one in the past and you wanna bring one back in, or have you never had one but maybe tried it a couple of times? Would you mind sharing a little bit about your where you are in terms of a meditation practice? Yeah, Kimmy, go ahead.
I always dismissed trying any mindful exercises because I thought that my ADHD wouldn't allow me to do it successfully. But kind of the reverse is true. So I most days start my day with a mindful exercise. It's like 5 minutes. It's called Supercharger Productivity. So I like to start that with that in the morning. And I used to make excuses like my employer isn't paying me to do a 5 minute mindful exercise. But if I, when I do it, it actually increases my productivity. So yeah, it's super valuable. And sometimes I'll do it during the day when I'm spinning and just having a hard time focusing. It just brings me back to the present and lowers my heart rate. And just, I don't know, it just works. And
Mm-hmm.
I do different ones too. I like that one in the morning, but that's one skill I'm working on building and trying to create a habit of. So.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And especially that how you opened with that you thought you would never be able to do it because of having ADHD. Yeah, I think that's pretty common, that we will think we can't do something because of some other challenge that we have. Um, and have you found, since you have been meditating, Kimmy, that um, have your ADHD symptoms been more manageable?
When I do the supercharger productivity one in the morning, or certainly, yes, I am able to manage my ADHD symptoms much more effectively when I um, utilize mindful exercises. So
Yeah.
definitely.
Hmm. Yeah, so you reminded me of something I wanted to share that I wanted to read with you, or that I wanted to read to you guys today. Yeah, Nyla, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment quickly that a quote that I found really amusing is everybody should meditate 30 minutes a day. And for those who don't have time, they should meditate for 1 hour. And
Uh-huh.
I thought it was just a kind of a clever way to to speak to the productivity that you gain from, slowing down to speed up and all of those other um, kind of concepts associated with more mindfulness and more present mindedness when you're working on a task and being able to finish it more quickly.
Mhm. Yeah, I love that. I used to have that pinned on my bulletin board
Mm-hmm.
in my workspace. That same comment. It's true, and that idea of you have to go, think it's something like you have to go slow to go fast. And what is the rest? That's the one I have now on my desk, but it's downstairs. Um, Go slow to go fast, and then I think something along the lines of smooth. Oh gosh, I can't remember. Smooth. Any of you guys know the quote that I'm talking about? All right, well, I'll have to pull it up sometime. So this is a reading, and the reason what you shared, Kimmy, what you said um, about slowing down and how that has actually helped you, that's sort of where the connection is to this reading. This comes from a book called Frequency, and the subtitle is The Power of Personal Vibration, and it was written by Penny Pierce in 2009. So this is a direct quote from her book. There are 3 levels of your brain. Moving up and down through your brain is like traversing a scale or a ladder of awareness. The upper neocortex, with its left and right hemispheres, handles abstract conceptual perception. The left hemisphere governs analytical thought and language, and the right hemisphere pertains to pattern recognition, intuition, and creativity. The midbrain is the level of sensory perception, and it helps you feel connected to the world through similarity and affection. The lower reptilian brain is survival-oriented and perceives through instinctive attraction-repulsion and fight-or-flight responses. It is responsible for motivation and direct experience. Since body data rise up the spine, the reptilian brain is the earliest point where information becomes conscious. It then takes on an extra dimension in the midbrain as the senses flesh it out and moves on to the upper brain, where then it takes on meaning and language and becomes a part of a larger pattern of knowing. If you keep the image of the ladder in mind, you can move fluidly up and down the rungs, shifting easily from body sensitivity to intuition to pattern recognition to meaning. To emphasize sensitivity, move down the ladder of your spine toward body knowing. To emphasize abstract perception, move up. If you've been living in your left hemisphere all day, you may be saturated with words and beta waves, and that can make you feel stressed and jittery. If you imagine moving to the right hemisphere and then down to the midbrain, where you experience intuition, the senses, similarities, and affection, you can shift to the slower alpha and theta waves and alleviate tension. Delta waves occur mostly in deep sleep and in heightened states of meditation. If you drop further into the reptilian brain, where you experience instinct and feel a direct connection to the environment, you can ground out any last remnants of stress. By coming down in your brain, you enter your body more deeply and calm yourself. Once you're calm and feeling steady, it's easy to feel your home frequency existing on all levels of your brain and in your body. How many of you have noticed the difference of how you feel following a meditation or a movement, maybe dance, or even doing creative work? You've noticed the difference between the quality of your being in those sorts of activities versus when you're working at the computer or maybe taking calls all day from people. Can you sense the difference, even just in remembering that now in how you feel? Yeah, go ahead, Kimmy.
I signed up. I have no idea how I even found the link or anything, but I signed up to join your Zoom Friday sessions on like creative dance. I haven't joined one yet because I'm just nervous, but can you talk to us about that for a minute and how to sign up maybe?
Yeah, so usually I just, at the end of this call, I usually pop the sign up in. And it's very, very informal. I just do it I'm just in my bedroom. I set it up on Zoom and I'm in my bedroom, which is like the only private place I have in my house. And the people that attend usually have their cameras off because they're not yet comfortable being on camera when they're dancing. It is 15 to 20 minutes, and I don't do any. Um, Usually, the people that come to my groups they are participating in other work with me, so we don't do any additional processing. We just show up. I give a little bit of guidance, and then we put on music and guidance in terms of reminding you of the different body parts that you have and moving through them. Um, and so that we might begin with um, with like our head, neck, and shoulders, and begin to sort of open those up by moving them. Uh, and then we might shift down into our shoulders, so rotating our shoulders and really opening and closing our chest. And then we move down into our abdomen and our hip area and really starting to get some spinal movement in. And then we bring in our feet and our legs and find movement in the dance. And I was thinking that this week we will actually do. I really wanted to do a shaking meditation with you all today, but I don't know how well I can do it. I wanted to kind of introduce it a little bit without music, but on Friday this week, I'm planning on doing a introduction into shaking, and after shaking, we go into stillness, and then we go into dance. And that shaking often will help us with being able to release into the dance. And so it's pretty low key. It's very low key. And you just have your Zoom off, your camera off, if that's what you want. And the music it'll take you through sort of a variety. We might sort of begin with just kind of warming up, and then we do get to where I try to get the energy moving quite a bit. So we get our heart rates up. But again, it's only 15 to 20 minutes, so it's very short. And then sometimes we just kind of end right there, and then sometimes we'll kind of go into really slowing down, like into kind of sort of a very gentle music, so that you can come into a place of stillness. And that's it. That's it for now, in terms of that practice. How's that? Does that help? Yeah, so everybody that's here, you are welcome to sign up. If you get on my list, now, as I've shared before, I'm really not good at, like, I won't send you a bunch of stuff. You will not get things from me that are just, it's not like a busy email list. I just send it out if there's something very specific that I'm offering. And let's see. Yeah, this is it. So I'll drop this in the chat. And if you want to sign up, you can sign up. And it's a real, when I get that you've signed up, I will send you an email. And when you're replying to that email, it comes directly to me. So yeah, so you'll get an email from me. And again, it's very informal. Sometimes very quick. Sometimes I drop the note like the morning of, or the night before, with the Zoom link. Any more questions or comments about that? Okay. Well, to get on a little bit further with our talk about meditation, there's been a lot of research done on meditation, mostly on concentrative meditation practices and mindfulness. John Kabat-Zinn is sort of one of the leading researchers who has helped get mindfulness off the ground and out into the Western lifestyle. So let's see. Many of you have heard. So at the beginning of the call, I talked a little bit about flow states. Flow states are so beneficial for our psychological and emotional health because they essentially help order disorder. So they will take disordered, sort of disorganized thinking, and it helps to sort of organize it. And that's what, anytime, if we're dealing with mental health disorder, we're dealing with disordered consciousness. And so, finding ways to essentially bring harmony and order back into our consciousness again is how we get better. It's not as big of a mystery as I think our culture tends to make it seem like. Maybe in our Western culture, it is because we've fallen away from many of the humanistic ways of life that are so essential for our well-being. Things like dance and meditation, things like movement, but also storytelling and prayer and community. Like these are all really essential aspects of ordering our consciousness. And when we feel connected to other people, we feel connected to ourselves, we are better. We have a healthier mind state. Let's see. Meditation, it's like I said about changing our brainwave state. It also changes the neurotransmitters that are in our bloodstream. It helps release neurotransmitters like serotonin. Serotonin is, I always think of serotonin as the contentment chemical. It's mostly produced in our guts, and that's why if we have really poor diet and nutrition, and we could have really low levels of serotonin. And so that's why there's a strong connection between our gut health and our mental health. I feel like sometimes if my head is cloudy, I can feel it. I can feel like I've had too much bread. Like I've enjoyed way too much sourdough. But there is that direct connection, and a lot of that is connected to this piece about the serotonin production in our bellies. Meditation also increases the release of endorphins. Endorphins are our body's natural painkiller. It also increases melatonin, which is the hormone that helps us sleep. Melatonin is also more, about an hour before after sundown, I believe. I might have this off a little bit, but after about an hour of dimness or darkness, we begin to have an increased release of melatonin. Melatonin is really important for helping us to enter into deep sleep. When we're in meditation, we also are increasing the release of melatonin into our bodies. So this also decreases cortisol and norepinephrine levels. Cortisol and norepinephrine are both associated with stress. We do need certain levels of cortisol and norepinephrine. That's what gets us up. That's what gets us to do our work, that sort of thing. So we don't want to be without stress. There's a good stress. It's known as eustress, and then there's de-stress where it's too much. And so we do need to have those stress chemicals or those stress hormones released into our bloodstream for taking action. But if we have too much, that is what kind of throws us off. And so meditation will help bring that down. Even simple, just sitting on the edge of your bed and breathing for 2 or 3 minutes intentionally will help that. Um, concentrative meditation is associated with lowering blood cholesterol, um, and decreasing pain, also associated with decreasing frequency and intensity of asthma attacks and improving mood and decreasing anxiety overall. Um, Many of you may have heard this before, but anytime you get involved and you begin to seriously establish any kind of mind body practice, whether that's yoga, a regular meditation practice, um, anything where you're significantly changing your physiology, um, if you're taking medications, it's important to let your doctor know, because sometimes people discover that they don't need as much of certain medications, maybe high blood pressure medicine, after they've started meditating. So just some things to keep in mind is that there are real changes that happen physiologically. And yeah. All right. So welcome everybody who's jumped in. Would anybody like to just experiment a little bit? We've got 15 minutes left. Would you like to experiment a little bit with some of this sort of shaking? We won't be able to do like a shaking and dancing thing per se, but we can do a little bit of this vibrational healing work here, and you can get a little sense, even if it's just for a few minutes. Are you up for it? Maybe give me a heart if so. Okay. Okay, got a couple. Yeah. Okay. So wherever you are, maybe if you're in a room by yourself, that's kind of ideal, as if you're in a space where you can be with yourself for a few minutes. If not, so we're going to move into a practice of sort of jiggling and shaking our whole body. And that might feel a little, sort of vulnerable to be showing to anybody else. But so again, so if you can close yourself off for a few minutes, let's do that. And for those of you that are, if you're driving, you're not going to be able to do this. So you're just going to have to listen. But also, if for any reason as we're doing this, if you're not able to fully do the practice, do what you can do. Sometimes I've been in rooms before with people who had pretty significant health challenges and couldn't fully do the exercise. But what they could do was participate with like their arms or even their legs. Okay, so, all right, so from where you are, bring yourself to a standing position if you can. And barefoot is always really great. That helps keep you grounded to the earth. And if you have anything that's like, glasses or anything like that, anything that could fling off, you might want to remove those. And with your feet about hip width apart, just begin to sort of, you're just going to begin by shaking your legs back, like you're just kind of like alternating, like shaking your legs back and forth, like from one leg to the next, just very quickly. And it's very small, it's not big. So you might feel a little bit of sort of jiggling in your legs and even your hips, but not a whole lot. And as you're doing this, you want to make sure that you keep the blood flow moving through your knees. So you got to make sure to bend your knees a little bit. Okay, and shaking from there. Now begin to shake a little bit more so that your hips are kind of just jiggling, right? Your hips are beginning to jiggle, and your abdomen. Your breathing might get a little more labored as you're doing this. I encourage you, as long as you can, to breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. That'll help keep your system calm. But if you need more breath, you can take more breath. You don't have to keep your mouth closed. So continuing this shaking your hips. Now you're beginning to shake your hands, letting your hands. So we're just kind of vibrating. Okay, we've got our feet, got our Knees shaking or legs shaking all the way up into your hips, your abdomen. Sometimes I like to kind of bounce up and down a little bit as I'm doing this. So energy gets stuck in our body. You know, there's this idea of emotional cysts that get stuck in our body. And so when we're shaking, we're starting to help move that. Okay, I hope you're all still moving right now and I'm not just here doing this by myself. So now that shaking, let it come up into your arms, into your elbows, your feet, your knees, your hips. They're all still moving. Now the only part that we're really not into yet, we haven't really started getting our chest going yet and above. We're just shaking. We've already been doing this about 4 minutes. And now begin to shake your chest, like begin to move your chest and your back and shaking it. Like just imagine you're trying to, like you're a salt shaker. Just shake that salt out. Shake and move. Now I'm not going to be able to talk as I'm shaking my, as we move into our head and our neck. So, but that's where we're going next. So in just a moment, shaking, we're gonna shift into, we're gonna bring our neck and our head into this. Bringing your neck and head in, just letting them shake, vibrate. Okay, and if you feel like you want to stop and you're doing this, keep going. Just push through that discomfort, that barrier, whatever it is that tries to tell you to stop when something feels uncomfortable. Just try to push through that anyway. Okay, usually it's on the other side of discomfort is where we can begin our transformation. That's where the healing is. Shaking your head. And you might notice, I realize you're probably all muted, but you might notice that you're, there's a sense to vocalize. If you need to release, maybe make some sounds. Okay, we've got about a minute left before we stop. So just really shake and vibrate as hard. Ah, I got muted somehow. I thought we all got shut out for a second. Oh gosh, I don't know at what point I got muted. Okay. So we were in
I'm
stillness.
sweating from this.
What's that?
I'm sweating from this a little bit.
Nice. So this last part, we are to sort of be in stillness for about a minute to two. And just receive the benefits of the experience. Feel your heart. Feel maybe the tingling in your legs and your arms and your body. All right. Maybe all that vibration like caused this glitch that we had. All right, who would like to share what happened for you? How was that experience? And even if you're like, this was the weirdest thing, Kari, that's okay too. How was your experience in this? What did you notice? Kimmy, you said you were sweating a lot.
Yeah, I feel lighter. Is that how you're supposed to feel?
That's definitely one of the ways people feel. Yep. Claudia said she feels a bit lighter. Yeah, and Hope shared shaking helps release cortisol. Yep, absolutely. Nyla, go ahead. We can't hear you if you're talking.
Oh, sorry. Yep, I was on mute. I had an interesting sensation. I started to feel thirsty, um, but I might have already been thirsty, but it was like maybe I was actually hearing what my body needed at that moment. So I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I think that's really common. I think is when we become aware of things that we have sort of not been conscious of during that. Yeah, that's awesome, Nyla. I got thirsty too, but I'm thirsty all the time. Yeah, so normally a practice. So you can do this at home. I want to encourage all of you to, if you want to join me on Friday, yeah, you can. You're absolutely welcome to sign up for my list, and I'll send an invitation to you, uh, and you can have that experience with us. I do recommend headphones. That'll be helpful. And but you can do this on your own. All you can either do it like we did, which this was a very raw version. Normally, I like to put on some music. So the idea particularly when it comes to shaking medicine, not necessarily the dance, but just shaking, is that we shake for, 10, 8 to 10 minutes, really a good length of time. I would put a timer on your phone, and just shake. Whenever you come across resistance where you want to stop, that is train yourself to see that as a cue to keep going. Anytime you feel that sense of, oh, I want to quit, or I should quit, that is usually just discomfort. And, I would say by now, everybody here probably knows the difference between discomfort, like, oh, I don't want to break that barrier, I don't want to get on the other side of that, and like when there's a real issue to back off of. So always attune to your own needs here. There's a sharper edge when it's something we're supposed to back off of, and so always trust that. And but again, discomfort, like we do want to sort of break through those discomfort barriers. So you can do this at home, um, shake for 8 to 10 minutes, and then immediately after that, put on some music and dance for another 8 to 10 minutes. And put on something you enjoy. And but when you dance, I encourage you not to be like dancing like around the house in a distracted way, but to like really be contained, like stay in one place where you're not distracted and stay in that dance. And there is magic that happens, inside of us when we do expressive meditation like this. And then, immediately after dance is always a great time. Even if you only do the shaking, it's always good to sit in stillness for a few minutes and receive sort of, I think of it as receiving the nourishment of all of that. You're getting all the good chemicals being released into your bloodstream. And so to be in a place of stillness and rest and receptivity, that's like you're kind of entering a place of being like a sponge and just totally receiving the goodness for you. All right. Sorry you got here late, Lori. We definitely missed you. And hi, Christine. Welcome. Okay. How about, we've got about 2 minutes left. So I'd like to open it up for questions, comments, anything you've got that you would like to share. Yeah, Kathy, go ahead.
I had this sense of, in my relationship, I had to kind of stuff my feelings and kind of go ahead along with whatever my husband wanted to do or whatever we were told in therapy, that I needed to put this behind and move forward. And I always felt like I was like I wanted to kick out of that, like get away from that feeling of totally having to abandon my feelings in order to make the relationship work. And as I was moving, I was like getting angry, like really, like get off of me, like let me be and let me move in the way that's comfortable for me, not like how counselor or husband said this is what you have to do in order to kind of suck it up and go along.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wish I
And I
could
do
give
that for
you.
years.
Mhm. Was this the first time you had that kind of experience?
Where it was just that clear, yes, because I've danced before and I love dancing, but in the silence, that's what came. And not stopping because I felt like that heaviness, or like, am I tired? Am I, and just pushing through. It was just like I can't even be still now. Like it's like that.
I wish I could give you like 100 hearts right now. I'm so happy to hear that you had this experience. This is what this movement practice will do. I used to teach this in recovery programs with women, and I always thought of it as a truth serum. We can lie to ourselves. We can lie to other people. We can be the good girl or the good guy. But when we start doing this kind of work, we start doing this kind of movement meditation, this kind of healing work, we can no longer abide by the things that we're told to do. We can no longer lie to ourselves either. And so this is often very, very transformative medicine for people. I likened it personally, my own experience when I got into dance. It was like it was like I tore off a cloak that I had been wearing that was never mine in the first place. Well, thank you everybody for being here today. It's time for me to close up the room. I've got to open up another one. I'll be hosting a gratitude conversation right after this. So I wish you all well, and I'll see you next week. Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome.